Morning YouTube. So in this video we're going to be looking at problems during a demonstration. So today I've grabbed the camera, still suffering with my back. However, I went out and demonstrated last night. I was in a lovely place called Bowport. It's like a holiday park down near Hastings, a lovely part of the country. And so it was a long journey. It ended up like two and a bit hours to get there, demonstrate, to 2 hours home. It was like M25 was shut. You know, the usual problems when we're going for demonstrations. Now there was about 70 people in the audience. It was like in a small back room within the country club there, and a setup that I had never done before. I don't even know how the booking come about, but it was one of those things. I got talking, I said I would do it, and off I went. What I didn't realise was that there was going to be alcohol present, and some people could have gone in much earlier if they wanted to, and be drinking during and after. It's something that I strongly recommend not to allow during a demonstration. For reasons that are kind of self-explanatory. You know what it's like once a group of people start drinking, and how that can play a role, especially at a public demonstration. Now in total there was, as I said, about 70 people there, and the majority, as usual, enjoyed the evening. I'd certainly had some nice feedback afterwards, and the demonstration went okay. You know, it was evidential, and as I've said in previous videos, if you're going to a spiritual church, you will demonstrate very differently than that of just the general public, because of understanding how the medium works, etc. Firstly, we need to take control of the situation. You know, we need to be shown to be able to hold the floor, especially when I didn't have an organizer there. It was like I arrived and you're going to have to tell people to turn their phones off and don't talk during people's messages, you know, the usual chairing person's role. And I found out just before I went on stage that I was doing that part of it also. No problem at all. We work the public stage and we do it very regular, so this wasn't going to be anything unfamiliar. So as you can imagine, it's a little bit rowdy, and it's a little bit, you know, the energy's going and people are talking, and we're getting ready to do the demonstration. And problems will present themselves, shall we say. Now there was this row of eight people, and clearly two were heavily intoxicated, and one being a heckler, just randomly shouting out, not ruining the demonstration, but one that was certainly drawing the attention of the audience. So I said that I am the medium and I will do my job. Please keep it quiet and stop shouting out. Then lo and behold, because of the way that I work, I don't pick them with my directness. I want to come to the lady there. I do it through the evidence, the statements of the communicator. And it turns out that this communicator was going to one of the 8, shall we say. Now it was an evening of a different kind of, what I try to do is try and make it very different, so it's not always grey-haired old ladies baking cakes wearing pinnies. Try to mix it up a little bit, start with a name or go with a passing condition. Try and keep everyone on their toes so they're listening at all times. And in this particular start to a communication was, I have a gentleman here. I'm aware that he's 51, 52 years old. I know that he's a heterosexual man, but definitely plays up at being homosexual. He loves the banter. He loves making people feel awkward. He's the kind of man that if he rubs my leg and he gets a reaction from me that I don't like it, he will do it more. I know that his passing was quite recent, but very quick and unexpected. Who understands this? And the reason I went out there was because in a spiritual church there would have been maybe more added to that, but it was the general public and I was gauging the audience, and I thought that that was enough to go out with. When one of the young ladies went, well, I think you're with me, but I'm waiting for more. And then the heckle started. They're all talking amongst themselves. 6 or 7 of them are starting to like get chirpy. And so I asked again, do you understand the information that I'm giving? To what was received back to me was just cheeky and trying to, you know, draw the attention to themselves, become the centre of attention on the evening. So I had to take control of the situation. It was one of those where it was, do I play their game? Do I go along with this and then lose the entire audience? But she was playing me up. I knew that it was going to be a problem, so I said, look, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to step him out, take control of the situation, send him off. If you don't want your communication, that's absolutely fine. Then I carried on. And the next communication was one that was actually something that was very different. It was the caretaker, I think, or something along those lines, of a gentleman that was like part of this holiday camp, part of this zone in Balport. And most people in the audience knew him, so it was one of those collective communications. It was quite nice. It was quite different as well. So the evening's drawing to a close. I've done nearly an hour for the first stint. They've had an interval. They've gone for a wee break and a cigarette and to get some more alcohol. Then come back and I've done another 45 minutes. So in total, it's like two and a bit hours that I've worked for. To just before close, that singularly they created enough commotion that they got up and left. One at a time, this row of 8, making not as much noise as they can, but it was certainly attention was drawn to the person. So I waited afterwards and people were coming up, and I can honestly, hand on heart, say at least 60% of that audience come up to me and apologised for the actions of some of the people in attendance, which I thought to myself, that's a strange thing to do. That is really, really weird. That's never happened to me before. All these people making apologies, but not for themselves, for another person, you know, and it turned out it was this group that was there. Afterwards, a couple of young ladies wanted to ask me some questions, and of course, if you know my mediumship and you've been to my demonstrations, I'm there and I will mingle and I will answer any questions or give any mechanics or understanding to something that you are questioning in your mind. That's something that I engage with in my public demonstrations. And then slowly the audience started to clear out and they started to leave. At this point, it seemed like a good time to go home. You know, it was late and let's get moving. You know, I've got a long journey home. And then someone said to me, have you got a minute? And I said, absolutely, what's up? I was just about to leave. To which point I was surrounded by 8 people. 8 very angry, annoyed people. Turns out it was the group that was in there. Only this time they were joined by a gentleman that was, let's say, slightly aggressive. Cornered into like a little alcove, about to leave the building, and his demeanour, his approach was one that is very, very aggressive. He looked like he wanted a fight. He looked like he was gearing up for the fight. So my demeanour and my posture had to change at that moment. To which then slowly, after 3, 4, 5 minutes, diffused the situation, then stepped aside. Now the reason that I bring this to YouTube or to the camera is because there are so many lessons that can be learned there. There are so many things that need to be done. I arrive home, and so I'm not someone that's going to sit on drive and check my phone messages as I'm driving. So I get home and there are a couple of reviews on the page, and lo and behold, the reviews on the Mediumship page on Facebook are from the 2 people that I had to be firm with to take control of the situation. To which they were very, very aggressive before, during and after, and now on Facebook. And so it's one of those that we're going to have to deal with that. It's something that comes part and parcel with it. So I suppose what we need to do is remain in control, and it's not about being rude or swearing or getting aggressive. It's about taking the control of the situation that we currently find ourselves in. We have to remember that let's take this audience for example. I had 70 people in the audience, 8 of which are not liking my style or liking me as a person. However, 62 people are enjoying the evening. They feel like they're connecting through evidence and connecting with their loved ones. And there were some very touching messages there, and some good communications happening, you know. So there was a large percentage of that audience that were enjoying the evening, only to try and be ruined by this small group. So we need to find a balance somehow as public demonstrators to be able to maintain that. So if any of you have seen me work, and I'm sure a lot of you have, you've travelled to the churches or to the demonstrations that I've done, or seen some of my teaching, or from the YouTube. The messages that I received on my phone, which I had to screenshot, so I will place them on the screen for you now. So the young lady that was being, you know, awkward, being rude, being very, not aggressive, but very loud. They had obviously learnt a new word that was abhorrent. I'll put the meaning of that on the screen now. And she writes a review on the page. Now the problem is with Facebook reviews is that you can't delete the ones that you don't want. So we need to sort of filter them out in some way. That's where you guys are going to come in a moment. But it said, the most appalling night that I've ever had. Was extremely rude to me when I asked was to give me more and maybe I'll relate. I ended up walking out. Now I must say that the demonstration was 2 and a bit hours long. This young lady left 2 minutes before the end. 2 minutes. So she's made that sound a lot worse than it was. I am finished in my grieving process, but unluckily for some in the audience they weren't. He picked on vulnerable people who just wanted to be close to their loved ones and listened to them one last time. Fished for answers, and the whole thing was a rip-off. Abhorrent. So they got their little word in there again. Now, if any of you have seen me work, I don't work directly. I don't ask questions. Mine are all statements. Everything's a statement. So I know the people that are part of the channel or know my mediumship or know me in person know that I don't fish for information. This is just a clear attack in any kind of way. This is something that you guys need to get used to. This is something that's going to happen, and I thought it'd be a perfect example to put on a video, because people inbox me, what do we do, what are we going to do? Now there's nothing I can do with this. If I respond to this in any way, in message or on Facebook, then it would just fuel the scenario. So it's one of those that we kind of just got to take the hit and let it happen, let it ride, and let it go away, because there will be many things that people will say nice about you. You know, that's one of those things. The downside is people don't type the nice things. They go, oh, it was a nice evening, he seemed like a nice guy, so on and so forth. Whereas the people that are infuriated get on the keyboard and start plugging it absolutely everywhere all over social media. But then I met a very, very kind of special character. One that, you know, she was like a little bit of a queen. She had clearly got everything her own way, and these people were doing everything that she demanded of them. She was very much that way in the demonstration, no centre of attention during that time, and very much created a scenario where she was going to get the attention. So she told me that she's very spiritual and that I don't know what I'm doing, and so on and so forth. You get the gist, don't you? So she posted, I've just experienced my first medium evening, and within 15 minutes of listening to Charlie, found him abusing the spiritual connection and gift that some mediums have. Before Charlie deletes me, I have to add that he is a total con artist, rude, unsympathetic, and upsetting. His audience are there for a spiritual connection, and he failed on an epic scale. You should be ashamed of yourself and your cheap crew. So the cheap crew that she's talking about was Carol. Carol joined me on the evening, to which they tried, 7 of them tried very, very hard to entice her into an argument. This, again, is going to be the kind of thing that happens, especially when alcohol is present. Now, this is something that I have to praise Carol, because she didn't respond. She didn't fuel the argument in any way. I asked her to just step to one side, let me deal with the situation, to which she did. She allowed me to do that. However, this woman, the one that was spitting that word abhorrent all the time, constantly trying to goad and get the argument going. Again, this is something that we're going to experience working on the public level. Now, there's nothing I can do on Facebook with that because it's part of the review. But what you guys can do is, if you've had any kind of interaction with me, any kind of teaching, seen my mediumship, absolutely anything, I ask that we kind of like filter it out through other reviews that's happened. I've got no problem with negative reviews on the channel. I've got no problem with negative reviews on Facebook. However, when big chunks of the story are missing, then it kind of looks like that's all you as the individual, in this case me, when a huge ingredient has been left out of that scenario. So that's where we can start to sort of change it. We've got to take the bad with the good. That's part of it. It's a good lesson. It's a good experience, you know, although quite a negative one. It's good to let you see how you're going to control the situation. It's good to show the audience that you are in control of your mediumship while maintaining not control, but it's kind of a control of the audience. You're in that driver's seat and they want to see that you can handle the situation, the heckler, the abuse being shouted, and the alcohol that is present. These are all very, very good lessons. So I know this is an extremely long video, but it's going to be one of those videos that I believe will give you so much value when you're first setting out. We all fear it when we're setting out. We don't know, we're scared of the public and we're scared of the scenario, to which 99.9% of the time the audience are wonderful people. You're in a spiritual church and they've got this wanting to work with you. When we do general public, just out of the, you know, out of a pub or out of just a hired venue, you almost invite some of that in because of the way it is. That's why you'll never see me working in a pub, and it's something that I've always refused to do. And when this booking I took was clearly one that I didn't think about. I didn't think about the scenarios, and so it kind of sort of caught up with me in the end, you know. So I've learned from it. There was a good experience on what we need to do. It got very heated, and how am I going to react in that scenario? Yet we still got to, you know, carry on. We still got to continue. So there'll be lots and lots of opinion. There'll be lots and lots of scenarios thrown into this. Feel free to use the comment box there. Feel free. I do ask you that if you are part of my Facebook group and you have had any kind of interaction with me, I ask that you just jump on for a moment and just give me whatever review, just to filter this one out, just to get it off my page. So I thank you in advance if you take the time to do that. I hope you can take something from the video, and I will see you all next week.